I'll speak to some of the things that were sent to me. Okay. Okay.
I think you have to unmute, Bhante. Sorry, I unmute.
Okay.
I think you have to unmute, Bhante. Sorry, I unmute. I think you have to unmute, Bhante. Sorry, I unmute.
Bhante, you are muted.
You're muted, Bhante.
I'll start again. Sorry. Namo tassa bhagavato harahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato harahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato harahato samma sambuddhassa. Bodhang saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi bodhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi bodhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Panati pata veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. Adina dana veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. Kame sumi chachara veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. Musawada veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. Suramaraya majjapamadhatana veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. Tisaranena saha panchasilan sadhukang katva apamadena sampadeta. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So if we sit now, I think there were one or two beginners. I'm not sure. Somebody wrote and said somebody was a beginner. Can you wave? Nobody's a beginner. Good. Okay. Or they've not turned up. Yeah. Okay. So we'll sit. I'll just sort of give one or two pointers. That's it. Yeah. So just make sure that your posture is an expression of the enlightened mind, the enlightened heart. So the energy in the spine with its natural curvature. If you're sitting in a chair, you might need a cushion in your back if you've got a bad back like me, but that natural curvature is important. And then you're just lifting up through the top of the head. Always spend a moment just relaxing the brow and the eyes gently closed and the jaw relaxed, lips together, teeth apart. And then the shoulders, sometimes you need to give them a good squeeze, get the tension out. Just getting that feeling of being relaxed. And just hands on the lap, any which way, whatever's comfortable. And just get in touch with the body breathing. Just the body breathing. And just as you feel the relaxation come, just be drawn to where you feel the breath most. The abdomen, the chest, the nose, the nostrils. And just relax the attention there. Receive the information. Just the sensations. And if you find it useful, just a little noting word, stop the mind wandering, rising, falling, in, out. But the attention is on sensations, feeling. Just relaxing the attention on those gentle sensations, allowing them to bring silence to the mind, calmness to the heart, and stillness to the body. Don't try to become concentrated. Becoming aware of the difference between the sensations of the in-breath and the sensations of the out-breath. becoming aware of the very beginning and ending of each in-breath and out-breath. If that makes you a little tense, sit back within yourself, just receive the information. As we feel more relaxed, more focused, just allow now that awareness, the observer, the feeler, to be drawn. It might be an itch, so go towards it. Observe your desire to scratch. What are the sensations inside the itch? Are they arising and passing away? Is the itch you, or is it an object you're aware of? Same with the discomfort, or even a pleasant or unpleasant mental state. Just observe, just feel. Don't do anything. Were we diligent during this time, bringing ourselves back to the present moment? Remember to encourage ourselves. Don't get self-critical. And if we thought we were diligent, well, we should congratulate ourselves. Did we see anything more clearly this time? One of the three characteristics, impermanence, the role of desire, wrong desire that creates suffering for us. Not self, not me, not mine. And gently opening the eyes. Okay. So there was one question and one invitation to talk about different techniques. But let me answer this question first. My question is about the practice of mind, observing mind. How can we know if we are truly looking at investigating the mind or simply the mind's illusion of mind, created by the mind to fool us? So that's a good question. Huh? How do you know? How do you know you're not making this stuff up? Okay, so when we're practicing vipassana, right, we've found this place within us, an observation post. We've sort of we've disidentified from everything that we usually identify with. So, for instance, if I have an itch, normally speaking, without any second thought, I just scratch it because I identify with, I don't want the itch. See, I am the itch and I don't want it, so I'll scratch it. So by pulling ourselves away from that sort of relationship, we've discovered a different relationship. So the itch now is not me, it's just there within my awareness. Yeah. And I'm also aware that the mind is creating a desire to get rid of it. When I use the word mind, it's a bit difficult in English. It also includes the heart, right? Mind, heart. In other words, it includes all our emotional life as well. Huh? So there's that desire to scratch it. Now we can see that as a process. We can directly observe that process, the process of a sensation arising and the desire to get rid of it, right? Now, whether the the mind is creating that, there's no doubt about it, but there's a certain basic reality about it because the itch is right there on your knee, right? It's not as though you're imagining the itch. The itch is there and you can scratch it, right? So there's a distinction between imagining that there's an itch and actually having an itch. There's a difference between imagining a desire of wanting to scratch the itch and the desire arising to scratch the itch. So there's a distinction to be made by what the mind can imagine and what is actually happening at the body mental level. This is also true of emotions. So, for instance, if some sort of sadness comes up, try and, if you sit, say, and you're feeling okay, try to imagine sadness. See, it doesn't come. Yeah, you try to imagine anger. So that's the imagination. trying to play, trying to create some sort of reality. And it's a real, but only in the imaginative world. But when you actually feel sad, that's not your imagination. That's something that the heart is creating, a sadness, and it's expressing itself in the body as a certain weightiness, a certain heaviness of the body, even tears that come, you're crying. So sadness has a physical representation, right? So the mind is not, the mind meaning the imagination, can't create that, right? It comes from the heart base, which is very much expressing itself through the body, right? The body mind. Huh? Now, when you've come to that position within yourself of the observer, the feeler, and everything is quite clear to you that it is an object. You're feeling it. You are observing it, right? What you've done is you've pulled your identity out of the psychophysical organism to a place where you can observe it. Okay? And that place where you're observing it from is more real to you than what you're actually experiencing in the body and mind. You have become the observer, the feeler. Okay? And every time you do that, you can point to something and say, well, that's not me. It's not mine. It's not myself. Yeah? And once that becomes more and more clear to you, you then begin to suddenly realize that you're aware of being the observer. You're aware of being the feeler. So if you're aware of something, you begin to realize you can't be it. So now the question is, when the observer disappears, is there anything left? And that's the deepest of spiritual questions. What is there when the observer and the feeler disappear? And the way that you might be able to experience that is by turning your attention towards the feel, the presence of the observer. Now, that's very difficult to do in an evening. It's difficult to do on a long retreat because you've got to be really very quite centered, quite concentrated. And normally speaking, everything has to be very quiet, very relaxed, so that the sense of the observer, the feeler, is extremely clear to you. Okay. So as to the question, let's just return to it, about the practice of mind observing mind. Is it the mind that's observing the mind? That's the question, right? Is it the mind observing the mind? How can we know if we are truly looking at investigating the mind or simply the mind's illusion? So here the distinction is between the imagination and actually what is being felt, what is being experienced. So for instance, I might I might look at a tree and I might think to myself, well, am I actually seeing a tree, right? Or is my imagination creating a tree? It's only when I go to the tree and feel it that I know, oh, well, that must be a tree. So it's the same within ourselves. It's through the process of feeling and experiencing. Now, that's why in those of you who know dependent origination, it goes from contact to feeling. That's where the Buddha puts the accent, feeling, Vedana, mental and physical feelings. That's where our attention goes. Yeah? Is there any questions arise from that, or have I completely confused you? This is the area of what can we say, a great confusion when we come around the self, because it's in the West it's normally been taught as there is no self. The Buddha never said that. And when he's talking about the self, the proper translation really should be soul, or spirit, because he's referring to the self, the Atman of the Brahminical tradition, right? Whereas a sense of self comes and goes. I mean, there's no sense of self when you're asleep. Where's it gone? Where's the self gone? Why aren't you dead? How are we doing? Is that, do you want me to, that's it. I mean, that's all I have to say about it. The content, oh, okay. Unless somebody has a question. No? We're done. Very good. I can always.
There is another question. I think Dharma. There is another question that Dharma emailed. Dharma, would you like to rephrase it?
Ajahn, Doreen has a hand raised.
Yeah, we'll go back later.
Oh, Doreen.
First,
Where's Doreen? Where's Doreen? Can't see Doreen.
Yeah.
I think she's put her hand down now.
Yeah. So Dharma, can you rephrase
I can't see Doreen. How is it I can't see Doreen? I ought to see Doreen if you can see Doreen. Sorry, go on, Ajahn. What were you saying? Dharma had a question for me. Yeah.
Yeah. So rather than going through the emails, if Dharma can rephrase it, then it seems he's finding difficulty. He's finding difficulty unmuting it.
Your sound is still. You need to put your sound on, Dharma. I think it was about the various techniques, was it not?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it is. Now I can speak, Bhante. You want me to summarize, Bhante?
Yes.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah. Go on, summarize. Yeah.
Yeah. No, just that I've asked this question to a number of meditation teachers regarding Vipassana meditation. As I said, in Amaravati, they told me in Adanchasa tradition, they do not have any specific Vipassana technique. They just practice calming the mind. Once the mind is very quiet and peaceful, you'll get wisdom and insight. But in Goenka's tradition, they do 3 days of anapanasati. Then on fourth day, they start body scanning and sensation.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, His Holiness Dalai Lama told us in one of the teaching, I think it was in Glasgow, there were about 10,000 people. He said, there's not much use. Just sitting quietly, closing your eyes. You have to do analytical meditation. They said even the rabbit can do, especially after a good meal, can go and sit under a tree and close your eyes and meditate very nicely. So I asked this, what is analytical meditation, to some of the Theravada Buddhist teachers. They don't know. They said they don't know. Then finally, I went and asked Geshe Tasi Sering at Zamyang Buddhist meditation. He explained, but I forgot about it now. And especially Mahasi Sayadaw technique, although we have done one weekend with it at Gaya House, but I forgot about it. So if you just briefly say, and now what I do is I just follow what Amravati do, because I go there often.
Okay. Okay. Well, we just need a bit of clarification. When we're practicing vipassana, right, which is to see things as they really are, the Buddha's actually talking about the 3 characteristics of existence.
Yeah.
And they are to see quite clearly the quality of impermanence. And the quality of impermanence is that nothing ever repeats itself and everything is vanishing. And we've got to see that process of vanishing and to link it in with the fact that we're all going to vanish in about all of us, sort of us. I think the youngest, everybody here will be completely gone in the next, what, 30, 50 years. We'll all vanish. And what, no, you'll be a bit longer, will you? So when we say vanish, we mean that there's nothing left. There is no leftover. And so after every out-breath, there's nothing. After every in-breath, at the end of the in-breath, there's nothing. And that's the radical nature that we're living in. And when we come down to a consciousness is arising and passing away at extremely strong, extremely fast, very fast indeed, because in Buddhist understanding, one consciousness can only have one sense base. So you're looking at me and you're hearing me, and it seems to be happening at the same time. But in fact, it's a sequence of immediately following consciousnesses that give us that impression, right? So it's breaking through the delusion of continuity that we're looking at impermanence. The second thing is the process of desire, right? And how it's creating problems for us. And it's to do with attachment. It's to do with wanting and not wanting, and recognizing that we don't have to obey it. And as soon as you begin to disobey the commands of these unwholesome desires, they lose energy. And in losing energy, you find yourself being more peaceful, because it's these desires that are creating a lot of the agitation. And then the final thing is to recognize that what we've just been talking about, this idea of it's not me, not mine, not self. Now, to get to that point where you can observe these things, you need to have some sort of steadiness of attention, right? How you get that steadiness of attention is dependent on whatever technique you're using. So although the Amaravati people say there's no technique, they actually do sit still and put their mind on something, which is the breath. They usually use the breath. So it's not fair to say then they don't have a technique. It's the same with Zen. In Zen, there's no technique, right? I practiced, I started off with Zen. You sit and observe. You observe in their way, you observe the 6 sense doors. In other words, whatever it is arising and passing away. How do you get to the point of concentration, steadiness of attention? See, I don't like the word concentration because it comes with a certain sense of tension. It's just steadiness of attention. How do you get to that steadiness of attention in Zen? It's because when you're not sitting, you're doing everything so fast that if your attention is not with what you're doing, you tend to trip up or drop something or bang your head somewhere. And so by working very fast and for long periods, we used to work for up to 3 hours at a time. When you came to sit, you already had that steadiness of attention, and you could sit and watch whatever arose and pass away. But in our normal daily lives, that's very difficult. So various teachers have produced these various techniques. So we've got the Ubakin technique, where you keep moving up and down the body, which has its own wisdom, right? One of the dangers, shall we say, of moving up and down the body is that when you come across something which is painful, you move off it. You're not really looking at your dislike. You're not wanting the pain. All these techniques have a downside, right? In the Mahasi technique, one notes, right, but then one can become too, shall we say, involved in noting, whereas you're supposed to be feeling. So all these techniques have a bit of a downside, but they're all there simply to bring around the quality of attention we need to observe these 3 characteristics. That's it. So in the Dalai Lama's language, that an analytical mind is that sense of curiosity. And that sense of curiosity in the scriptures, in the discourse on how to establish right awareness, these 2 words always come together. Just Satima, Atapi, Sampajano, Satima, Sampajano, with with curiosity, with intelligence and awareness, satima. And that's why this place is called Satipanya, because that's the Buddha mind, right? That's what's doing the investigation. And if that curiosity is not there to see one of the three characteristics, you end up being a rabbit sitting under a tree. That's what happens. So it's not good enough just to sit there being aware. There has to be this very active process of looking in order to see what's actually happening. Yeah? Is that?
Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah. And of course, every technique tells you it's the best and every other technique's useless. Well, you always get one-upmanship.
Yeah.
But a lot of it depends on your teacher. I mean, the whole point is to find a teacher whom you have a certain trust in, and they guide you. See, no, I mean, I was just very fortunate in having Burmese teachers who practiced in this method of Mahasi. You know? But when I went to, I spent some time in Thailand and went to various centers. And there was one teacher called, I'm pretty sure he's called Ajahn Dhammanando. And he had a center just outside Bangkok, some way out of Bangkok. And what he was teaching was when you sat, you sort of raised your hand up like this. And so it wasn't the breath, it was your hand. And as you raised your hand, you touched your fingertips together, right? And that was what you were looking at. You were just raising your hand and lowering your hand, right? And he had an enormous amount of monks and nuns working with him and lay people. So something was happening there. You see, I mean, I tried it, and it's a skillful means. You see, just feeling the sensations arising and passing away, and because of the action of the arm, because it's so gross, you can't but keep your attention to it. The breath sometimes becomes very, very subtle, and there's a tendency to lose that sort of one-pointedness, and before you know it, you're off in la la land. See?
Okay, thank you. I think Doreen is here as well, and there's another question on a chat about early on that Bhante explained about a no self and a no soul concept. So maybe after that, Doreen, do you have something to ask Bhante?
I do, but I wasn't the one who sent that particular question. It is regarding what Bhante just said when he was giving the information, not the answer to the question to Dharma. It's regarding the feel and the feel. I think I asked a similar question last time as well. Could you please explain to me again, if you wouldn't mind, you said that it's a very subtle difference between the feeler and the feeling, I guess, and you switched them around. Was that what you were going to say, or did I get the wrong end of the stick?
The feeler or the observer is experiencing the feeling. The feeling is an object. You're sort of looking at it. You're feeling it. I mean, like for instance, if you scratch your hand now, if you just give a little scratch to the surface of your wrist, for instance, you can see you're up here somewhere looking down at this feeling. Yeah, there's a distinct separation between something up here that knows the feeling and the feeling that's down there. That separation is telling you whatever that feeling is in the wrist, it can't be me, can't be mine. Okay? And it's making that clear to ourselves, which is beginning to understand the teaching about not me, not mine, not self.
Yes.
If, on the other hand, you catch your finger in the door, you see, For that one glorious moment, you and the finger are one.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's identity. I am the
Right.
finger. I am the pain, right? And then, of course, when you get your finger out, you're a bit angry with yourself. And then you become the anger, you see. So it's this
Yeah.
constant shifting of what we're identifying with. And what we're doing in Vipassana is recognizing that we're not any of that. And we're experiencing ourselves as this observer, this feeler. And the question is that real or not? And the underlying question is, the perceiving cannot be the perceived. That's your basic line.
Right. Right. From that, if I can be a little bit more technical on that, if everybody else would be would
Yes,
go
go
along
on,
with
yes.
you, is
Yes.
that the two stages of to the Sotapanna way, the stream winner, is that the first way, first stage, if you like, of the
Well,
observer?
no. The Sotapanna, you see, as you keep meditating, these insights, they come, they're little insights, but they'll grow to a particular insight, which, as it were, changes your understanding at a very basic level, under which you cannot, back upon which you cannot go. I'll give you an instance. When we reach the age of 7, two things happen to us. We first of all start experiencing guilt. That's why anybody, even if a child does something which is really naughty, like killing their brother or their sister, you can't blame them because they don't have a sense of guilt. But after 7, there's a sense of guilt, right? That's the first thing that comes into it. And in my opinion, if I may say, that's the whole story of Adam and Eve, right? It's expressing what happens to us when we come to us at the age of 7. The second thing is, and this is what happens to Adam and Eve, you cannot believe your imagination anymore. So Father Christmas simply cannot come down the chimney. It's just impossible to do that. And once you've attained that level of reality, you can't go back on it. You can't be a 3-year-old again, right?
Right.
And that's when Adam and Eve get chucked out of the Garden of Eden, because they're no longer 3-year-olds. They're 7-year-olds. They've got real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So sorry.
So with Sotapanna, it can be an insight into any of those 3 characteristics. Right.
Right. Yeah.
I have to say that sometimes that insight of Sotapanna is so subtle that the person doesn't believe they've had the insight. But one telltale sign of an insight, a spiritual insight at that level, is that something radical changes in your life. And normally other people see it. There's a change, you see, a systemic change.
Like a 7-year-old becoming more adult about everything, cheeky and everything else.
That's right. That's right. And one of the insights of that is about the self, right? And what happens is that the notion of a self disappears, but not the sense of self. See, that attachment stays to the bitter end. So
Yes,
it's like, for instance, before in the 1940s, 50s, everybody thought smoking actually did you good because the tobacco companies were telling you that it was good for you, made you relaxed. It was as the science came through in the 60s that it was actually killing you. Everybody finally began to understand that smoking is actually really, really bad for your body, but they didn't stop it. Right. Now, I had a friend whose father used to smoke cigars. And as soon as he had a heart attack, right, which was the sign, he stopped smoking. But it needed a heart attack to get him to stop smoking.
Oh, yeah.
So that insight is a primary insight, but of course, there's a long way to go.
Yes, yes.
There's the
I
way.
get the gist of it. Thank you.
You get
Thank
it?
you, Bhante.
Okay. We got another one. I think there was a question here from
Lena. There is a question about Dear Bhante, please explain again the difference between what the Buddha said that there is no self and what you said earlier today that there is no soul.
Yeah. Well, it's English. It's the way we use the word self and the word soul or spirit or other things. Because of our very scientific, should we say, way of looking at things, these words like soul or self become debased. Because, we've got this scientism, this belief that there's only one way of knowing the world, which is through science, through hard science, But to go back to the original understandings of these words, there was something in us which was eternal, right? Which doesn't die, doesn't born. Well, doesn't the Buddha say that about Nibbana? Doesn't he say that it's something which is not born, doesn't die, is not conditioned, etc., etc.? So our spiritual aim is to discover this Nibbanic element. That's how it's put in Theravada, the Nibbanic element. Right? Now, there's something in us which is real, which has absolute ultimate reality, rather than everything we're experiencing at a psychophysical level, which is simply arising and passing away. Right? So the whole technique, all these techniques of Vipassana are all to get us to begin to realize by our own direct experience what the Buddha in the Noble Eightfold, Four Noble Truths calls the end of suffering. Right? That is the end of suffering. Does that make sense? And in other Buddhist traditions, like the Mahayana, they will call it Buddha nature. Is that clear? I mean, does that help?
Lena, do you want to clarify, or are you satisfied?
Who asked that?
Lena.
Me.
Velina.
Thank you.
Velina, yes, okay.
Thank you so much, Bhante.
Okay.
So am I right in understanding that all these words, the Buddha nature, the soul, the self, have something in common?
Yes. Well, again, it's all dependent on these awful definitions, and how people define things. What we can say is that whatever the experience of Buddha nature, whatever it is that the Buddha was pointing to when he said, this is the Tathagata, right? The one who has gone beyond, right? It's not the psychophysical organism. That's dead clear. You see? So that's what we're trying to experience directly for ourselves. And what I'm pointing out is that when you are the observer, the feeler, quite distinct from any sensations coming from the body, feelings and thoughts and images from the mind, you're in the presence of Nibbana. And you can ask yourself, in this state afterwards, well, even before, but even while, but definitely afterwards, was there any sense of suffering when I was there? Yeah. Any sense of dissatisfaction? And equally, was there any sense of happiness? I mean, that's the other thing we don't understand about Nibbana, that there are no emotions in Nibbana. Yeah. I mean, when Sariputta was said, when somebody said to Sariputta, are there emotions in Nibbana? He says, no. He said the fact that there's no emotions in Nibbana is the happiness of Nibbana. Which is a bit of a disappointment for us, because we love to be emotionally excited and happy. Oh, yeah. Okay. How's that?
Well,
What are we doing?
yes, Bhante.
No, no.
So your description is about like the fourth jhana. Is that correct?
No, it's nothing to do with jhana. Jhana is another mental state. It's just
Please
another
explain
mental
a little
state.
more.
Sorry?
Please explain a little more.
Well, jhana are those mental states that you can achieve through concentration, but they're still part of the psychophysical organism. Okay, and when you're definitely when you're aware of that state, you can also see the three characteristics. And those jhanas, you get them in all religions, ecstatic religions, you know. How are we doing?
I think that's all questions and all the reflections.
Very good.
Before we, it's already 1 hour, over 1 hour. So in that case, shall we do a little short meta meditation to finish?
Yes.
And then, meantime, if you have any questions, as Bhante said early on, that you can email to Bhante directly or to me, so that in the next session, Bhante will answer and go through that. So you are most welcome to send those questions. Particularly, try to remember, rather than going towards the philosophical concepts, I would rather encourage you to tell your experiences in meditation and what's the troubles going on with your meditation. That will be more fruitful. If you want to know about the philosophical concept, probably there are more schools to go. So with this, Bhante, thank you for your time and knowledge.
Yeah, thank you.
Short
So if we
meditation.
do a little metta practice, so again, just sitting quietly for a second, for a few moments. And we then just bringing to mind certain wishes, certain well-wishing that we want to offer people. May you be safe, well, and happy. May you live contented in harmony with the world. And we can bring to mind a benefactor, somebody who's helped us in our lives. May you be safe, well, and happy. May you live contented in harmony with the world. Bringing to mind those who are near and dear to us. Bringing to mind friends, people at work, whomever we wish. Bringing to mind a neutral person, someone we see but don't know. turning that stream of goodwill, loving kindness towards ourselves. And into the heart of goodwill, anyone we find difficult. Beginning to radiate outwardly, first of all to each other, our present spiritual companions. May we, radiating outwardly to all our neighbors, to all the people in our country, all the peoples of Europe, all people on earth. And to all beings in all directions. May all beings be happy. Sabe sata sukhita hontu. Sabe sata sukhita hontu. Sabe sata sukhita hontu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I undertake the training rule to be early next week.
Thank you very much, Bhante, for your greetings and your answer.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next week at the 7 o'clock UK time.
7 o'clock, yes.
And in the meantime, if you have any questions regarding meditation, you can
Or Dharma questions, yeah.
Dhamma
Yeah,
question.
please. Yeah,
Okay.
please email. Take care. Toodaloo.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, everyone.